Thank you for being patient. Welcome to October Gallery. My name's Ella and I'm one of the education coordinators, and this is Beth, the other education coordinator. And we're really pleased to have you here during our Laila Shawa exhibition, The Other Side of Paradise. And we've got a wide range of topics that are going to be covered by our guest speakers related to women and politics. And obviously it's Women's History Month, and this is why we've organised the event. We actually hadn't heard of Women's History Month until a few months ago, from a lady who visited the gallery. And we'd heard of International Women's Day, and we'd heard of Black History Month, and we were quite keen to organise something that explored the concept of dedicating 1 month to a portion of society. We knew that this might run the risk of being a bit reductive, and instead of doing that, we wanted to break down the idea of a homogenous female identity and present a variety of perspectives. So hopefully that's what we're going to be doing today. We gave each of our guest speakers the Laila Shawa artwork there, Disposable Bodies number 3, or here, to use as a starting point for their talks. And now we're going to hear how they all use this trigger and the variety of narratives that were born out of this. Before I pass over to Beth, who'll be talking about the structure of the day, I'll just let you know that the ladies' toilets are opposite the entrance, the gentlemen's are across the hallway. In case we need to evacuate for any reason, there's an exit in the gallery cafe and also the front entrance. I'll tell about Benjamin. Benjamin Zephaniah was rushed to hospital for an emergency operation yesterday. However, he is a real trooper, and I've been in communication with him over the phone, and he said he is going to try and come. He will probably get here at 3, and he might be in a wheelchair, but he's determined to make it. Yes. So we will keep our fingers crossed, and hopefully he'll be here. If not, we might do his presentation via phone, or if all else fails, we will invite you all back to the gallery for a free evening of poetry and a talk with him, but hopefully he'll be here. So everyone keep your fingers crossed. I'll just pass you over to Beth now, who'll talk to you about the structure of the day.
Hello, we've got a really busy day ahead, so I'll just tell you what's going to happen in the first half. First we've got Laila, our exhibiting artist, followed by Cheryl Cato and Sally Gimson. Then before our break, Data will be talking about their art practice with us, and we'll have a short break at about probably just after 2 o'clock. We'll try and rattle through the morning, and we can have a cup of tea. And we'll convene again around 2:30. After every talk, we're going to take 1 or 2 very short questions or comments after each speaker. If you've got a burning question, you will get the chance to ask it during the round table later on, and if you're very shy, then there is a question card that you can write your question down on, because I don't like asking questions. And yeah, they're on your seats along with all the other stuff we've got. But firstly, if you don't mind turning your phones on silent or off, that'd be really great, just so that we can have a bit of peace in the room. And then, yeah, that's it, I think. So first, I'd like to welcome Laila Shawa, who's our exhibiting artist. Laila was born in Palestine and has developed a fascinating art practice that marries highly charged political imagery with a pop culture aesthetic. And her work has been exhibited internationally and is in many public and private collections. So please welcome Laila.
Hi everybody, thank you for being here, and I hope I'll make sense. The first thing I wanted to comment on is the fact that there's a Women's Month, and that doesn't make sense to me. Women are over 60% of the population of the world, and they are given a month in 1 year. It doesn't make sense. So for starters, I think I actually blame women for accepting this. I think the first thing you should do is reject such an allocation of interest, whatever. Anyway, since this seminar revolves around one of my works, I probably should explain to you about this particular work and what initiated this exhibition. I come from Palestine. I'm from Gaza specifically, and over 60 years of occupation by Israel, there has been many movements of resistance in Palestine. It started in the 70s, where certain women, activists if you like, hijacked airplanes, El Al airplanes. One of them was very famous. She was arrested in London and she was in jail for a period of time. Her name was Laila Khalid, and the resistance, sort of died out for a period of time after 1967, when Israel occupied the rest of Palestine. Certain things started to happen. And what I just want to focus on is during a very specific period in Gaza and in the rest of what became known as the occupied territories, although I consider that the whole of Palestine is occupied. In 1987-88, a movement started which was later known as the Intifada. And this was an uprising of people under occupation against the Israelis. Specifically in Gaza, we had a population of workers who used to earn their living in Israel proper, and every morning out of Gaza you would find something like 50,000 workers trying to cross the border to Israel with a great deal of security from the Israelis. But they used to go and work in Israel and come back in the evening. So every morning at 3 in the morning you'd see something like 50,000-60,000 people gathered at the checkpoint that separates Gaza from Israel. And it would be a very slow movement of these 50,000-60,000 people, but they were very useful to Israel because they were very cheap labor, and so they eventually went and came back and so on. When the Intifada started, which started actually by children throwing stones at Israeli tanks or soldiers, the Israelis decided that they will not allow these workers to go in any longer into Israel. It became very difficult. What actually happened was that the Israeli army would be running around Gaza, pursuing children with stones, who were throwing stones. And the men, the fathers, the heads of the family, in fear of losing their jobs in Israel, would hide. The only people who stood up against the Israelis, defending their own children from being arrested, were the women in Gaza. I've seen women beat up Israeli soldiers with their bare hands. And the Intifada was crushed by the Israelis eventually. But what happened to women was very interesting after that. These women, very proud peasant women, who never ever wore a veil on their faces. They wore the traditional Palestinian dress. They had a very beautiful head cover, very similar to the images you see of the Madonna in art. I think because the men felt emasculated by the fact that the women were the defenders. And they lost their position as the breadwinners, the heads of the family. Their children lost their respect for the men, folk. The women became very strong. Things developed in such a way. At the same time, there was a new resurgence of Islamic ideologies in the region. And you found that these women who stood up to the Israeli soldiers and sometimes beat the shit out of the Israeli soldiers, literally, became covered. The men wanted to exercise their right to enforce their power, if you like, and these women were forced to veil. That gave way. I mean, the women used to wear these fantastic, beautifully embroidered peasant dresses that Palestine is known for. Suddenly you saw women wearing long dark coats covered, totally cover everything in their bodies, and a headscarf, hijab, type of hijab. Of course, resistance sort of stopped for a period of time until we reached a certain period where suicide bombers started to become active in Palestine. Some of the very well-known incidents that took place were actually committed by women. Women became suicide bombers. I saw a program recently, 2007 I think, about the cult of suicide bombers. And in that program there was a very small footage of an incident that took place on the border between Gaza and Israel of a woman, and she's in the video there, who is suspected by the Israelis. She's wearing a long black dress and a head cover, but she's suspected for some reason of carrying more than that. So she's asked to strip, and she strips. She takes off her clothes. And she starts peeling off slowly until she reaches the final layer. She's wearing a man's trousers, which is open, the zip is open. She reaches into her pocket and she pulls something out, and it's clearly a device, an explosive device. And she tries to blow herself up, but she doesn't, she can't. The device doesn't work. And she tries 3 different times to do the same thing, and it doesn't happen. That, watching this, led me to investigate why. Why did she fail? And what motivated her to actually make that decision to become a suicide bomber? I discovered, and I'll have to be very brief now because I only have 5 minutes, I'm told. I did a lot of research. I did research on suicide bombers, women particularly, in Palestine. Discovered that a big number of them had compromised their families in a way that their families considered dishonorable, and they were encouraged, therefore, to become suicide bombers. And by dying as suicide bombers, they become martyrs. The family's honor is saved, and the family will become the proud parents of a martyr. And I find this incredible, that women do not have equality with men in any society in the world, I think, including the West. Women still are struggling to gain that kind of equality. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a month for women, you know. So you have a long, long way to go, or we all have a long way to go. But in the case of women suicide bombers in Palestine, It's extremely sad, and I don't know how one can fight that kind of control over women's lives. But I think everybody tries, and maybe they succeed, maybe they don't succeed. But I personally put the blame on women for accepting to become victims, either of their societies, their families, their menfolk, or of their occupiers. There it is. I mean, I don't know if I can add any more. Well, that's it. I mean, yeah. Thank you.
We have time for one question from the audience until later, so if anyone's got a burning question, please ask it now.
Any burning questions?
Everyone's a bit shy. All right, in that case then, thank you, Laila.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.